Aptitudes, you cannot study for. They are innate. So there's actually 52 that can be measured. For some people, learning a job is harder than actually doing a job. Like acquiring the skill may take them longer and be more of a struggle, but all of us can do anything with practice. But the point too is, why would you? We all have things we've got to get competent at, but why spend a lot of time trying to perfect it or apologizing for why we're not the best at it? You will be bored and frustrated if you are not using your aptitudes. A lot of people's boredom and depression is oftentimes because of an undeveloped aptitude. So in the end, this is all about empathy, and it's about love. It's about not seeing other people as a flawed version of us. It's really valuable information.
That's Betsy Wills. She's the founder of YouScience and a pioneer in democratizing aptitude assessments. She's also the co-author of Your Hidden Genius, the science-backed strategy to uncovering and harnessing your innate talents. So you'll learn 1, where most career assessments fall short; 2, why a low aptitude score shouldn't discourage you; and 3, the root of boredom, frustration, and burnout. And if you want a quick summary write-up of some of these actionable takeaways, I recommend you go to our website, awesomeatyourjob.com, and sign up for the free Gold Nugget email newsletter. I'm Pete Pekaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Betsy. Betsy, welcome.
Thank you, Pete.
Well, I'm excited to be chatting about your work, digging into innate talents, aptitude, your hidden genius. Marshall Goldsmith was raving about the book deal you had, so it must be good, Betsy, right?
It's very good and very necessary for people, very unique.
Certainly. Well, tell us, what is unique? I think people think, well, I've done a Myers-Briggs, I've done a DISC, I've done a StrengthsFinder. You got another one of these assessments, Betsy. What's sort of fresh here?
Okay, I just love that question more than anything. Actually, the assessment is not new, but what it was extremely expensive. The assessment is from Johnson O'Connor, which is a career center that you go to in 12 different cities around the country. Cost about $750 to do it. When you do it, you're doing these exercises that you cannot game on your aptitudes. And most people do not understand what aptitudes are. And basically, they're hidden from people. You may have an inkling that you have certain abilities that are innate, but this is the scientific way to prove that. So the book includes the aptitude assessment with a code to take online. And that is what's unique.
Okay, super. So now when you say aptitude, this is bringing back memories. SAT, did it stand for the Standard Aptitude or Scholastic Aptitude Test?
Originally, it was called the Scholastic Aptitude Test. And the people that make that test realized it is not an aptitude test. It's not about your innate abilities. It was actually the Scholastic Achievement Test. And so the term has kind of stuck and been conflated, if you will. But even the Scholastic Achievement Test rebranded itself to be called just the SAT, if you look into that history. Right.
Inside scoop.
Inside scoop. So we have sort of shifted and moved in our terminology for these things. But aptitudes, you cannot study for. They are innate. So there's actually 52 that can be measured. And they range from glare factor. Certain people are really bothered by glare and other people not so much, on a continuum. It's an actual innate ability. We don't test that because it only really matters if you're a truck driver or you're flying an airplane.
Jet fighter, yeah.
Yeah, it does matter. And they do test it in the military, but it's not one of the pieces of this particular battery. But what we do assess are things that really matter in the world of work. And these are things that typically school does not recognize, are things like your spatial ability. Some people are able to see things in 3D very easily, and other people are more abstract. I know we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then there are certain cognitive things like people's reasoning skills or memories. But all of these things combined can give us great insight into where we're going to find satisfaction in our work, as well as our best avocations, which I think are quite important.
Yeah. 52 aptitudes that we know about so far from science. Now, that's just intriguing.
Yeah, and there's others that are coming, believe me.
So where might I go to just find the rundown, the list of these little tidbits from Glare Factor and more?
Another good question. So, the other thing that's been hidden from people or they didn't realize is the US government and the Department of Labor and Statistics has been tracking every single job and built basically a Rosetta Stone of information with each of the 52 and the amount of each 52 that are ideal for each job. So, think of it as this huge data set. But until I know your data on your aptitudes, I can't really give you great career suggestions. And so that's the purpose in many ways of having your aptitudes assessed because it maps to this enormous database, almost like a match.com for your jobs. So just like medicine, which has become extremely personalized using data, now we have the wherewithal, if we can have our aptitudes assessed, to find out where we would best fit in different types of jobs. Now, let me be clear, there's not one job for one person. There's many, many options, but it helps you sort of narrow down what is basically a tyranny of choice and the misguidance of saying to people, follow your passion or do what you are. You've got to know what you are. And this gives you an enormous amount of data to make better decisions.
Ooh, now, Betsy, we don't do an NPR style journalistic narrative situation, but now you got me curious about this secret government conspiracy that has constructed the career Rosetta Stone, and we don't know about it. Is it published somewhere deep in a back website?
No, anybody can access this, and it's not nefarious at all. It's called ONET, and I talk about it in the book. You can see that. But here's the rub. When you were in high school, and I was in high school, and since the 1960s, they have been using a survey called the interest survey. You took it, I took it, pretty much every high school in America gave it because it was
Yes, I kind of remember that.
Yes. And it asked you, Pete, like on a scale of 1 to 5, do you like building cabinets? Okay. Or on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel about medical terms or something? Well, at 17, who the heck knows? We've been exposed to almost nothing. But they called it career guidance. And that assessment mapped to ONET. And when it mapped to ONET with very little information that you self-reported, it would give you career suggestions, like be a funeral mortician, hairdresser, or, forest ranger, or doctor, or lawyer, things like that. But it was using very scant data to do that you were self-reporting. So the database has been very refined and it's very powerful. But the stuff we were putting into it with those high school surveys that acted like a boomerang because it was just you telling the survey and it telling you something back, that's pretty bad. And now we know that information was essentially career malpractice. You really need to have much better data. It's like if you went to the doctor and you told the doctor you have cancer, and the doctor said, you know what, I agree. Let's start the chemotherapy. You'd be like, what? You'd say, aren't you going to run some tests or get some information? I mean, you don't self-report yourself like that. And this is the same with careers at this point. So that's really what has happened is this is career guidance 3.0. Finally, we're in an era where we can scientifically understand what we're hardwired to do, where our best opportunities are, and where we're going to find the most satisfaction by understanding what our aptitudes are. And that's why this book is so, so important.
Oh, that's good. And I love that line about the doctor. You tell the doctor what you have and they say, yep, you got it.
You're sure right. Yeah.
So much good stuff. You said they have a sense of the ideal amount of aptitudes of different types for different jobs. So now when you say ideal amount, that triggers me to think, so it's not just more of everything is better. We'd be worse off having more aptitude in being in certain jobs?
These are the most miserable people. There's not very many who basically have powerful aptitudes in all of the things you can measure. That is, and nobody does have that. But what you're looking for and what's wonderful about understanding what your aptitudes are is you're looking for a combination of things as unique as your fingerprint. So let me give you an example. Idea rate. You took it, Pete, and it told you were a brainstormer. We gave you a question and you remembered the assessment. I don't want to ruin it for your listeners, but your result was you were a brainstormer, which really means
I didn't know. I was typing things. Was that a lot of things?
yes.
I
That
have
was
no
one thing.
context. Oh, that was a lot of things. Okay.
It was a
Go
lot
me.
of things. So people who score like this, ideas come out like a flood.
Oh, cool.
They almost have trouble turning it off.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. At night, I need a glass of wine sometimes to turn this off. Okay. So it's lots and lots of ideas that are coming to you at one time. The other side of the continuum, people who don't score as if they come up with a lot of ideas are called concentrated focusers. So people who score like you do make great podcast hosts, salespeople, marketers, journalists, writers, teachers. Pete, you don't want your surgeon or your pilot to have this. Okay. So
Here's a fun idea. What if instead we cut this other part for funsies?
yeah. Like let's sew them up this way. So the point is, oftentimes the things that are not as strong for us are what unlock our best opportunities. So think of your aptitude scores as looking almost like a soundboard. You're going to have certain things that are way up here and certain things way down here. That's that combination that makes the music sound so great. And that's really how aptitudes work. So we're not looking for A pluses,
Oh, Betsy, yes. Well, it's so funny. I was just thinking something about myself I've noticed kind of recently is, boy, I love designing processes, but I hate following them. It's like, does that make me some kind of a hypocrite? Like, listen, employees, you do these things that I've spelled out, but I don't want to do these things because it gets boring for me. I want to mix it up. And to the notion of having optimal levels, not necessarily just more and more and more, we were talking with a Navy SEAL, Rich Diviney, about what he calls attributes. See a little bit of overlap here. And he used, for example, the attribute of empathy. We think, oh, that's a good thing. I want to be empathetic. But he said, if your role is being a stand-up comic, you don't want to have high empathy.
That'll be highly distracting when you're trying to make that sarcastic remark.
You're going to be offending a segment by necessity in order to be funny. I get maybe it's possible to be kind to everybody in your jokes, but often those are like fifth grade pun books, which are not that funny in my experience with my kiddos. So I think there's a lot to be said there. Yes, those aptitudes, it's intriguing how if you have a whole lot of a thing, it might not feel like a great fit. Now you're making all these flashbacks here. I remember I was at a Bain party because I used to do strategy consulting. And so, well, I think there was an event where beverages were flowing liberally and folks were just sort of speaking their mind. I remember our corporate librarian person said to me, I don't know what you're doing here, Pete. I was like, what? That's not what I want to hear. I mean,
this isn't a job review, I hope.
I'm trying to advance my career and she's like, you just have so many creative ideas. The consulting thing, this doesn't really seem like you. And I thought, it's interesting because in a way, I totally vibed with my fellow consultants and like the problem solving, find the insight, communicate it. But then, boy, once we had to polish that PowerPoint deck for a 6th iteration, I was like, aren't we done? Aren't we? Can't we just move on?
Well, people again that are brainstormers like you, they tend to like to have multiple projects going at one time. And that's probably what did attract you being consulting. But I will say for you and your scores, because I appreciate you taking the assessment and investing in yourself, you scored as a diagnostic problem solver in the inductive reasoning assessment, which, if you recall, if anybody out there plays the New York Times connections game, it's quite similar the way this is assessed. People who like to draw connections with a lot of ambiguity and not all the information present. And that is how a lot of consultants score because they love problems where not all the information is necessarily in front of them and they can draw inference well. So you scored like that, for example, Pete, and it's not necessarily that usual to score like you did. In fact, not a high percentage of people score with that diagnostic problem solving score. And so congratulations, you should be leaning into that as much as possible. And some people might tell you, because all of these aptitudes, wherever you score, there's going to be an Achilles heel. Okay. And in the book, we talk about the positives and then also the challenges for everybody's scores. And in your case, people who score as diagnostic problem solvers, they can tend to procrastinate, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Because they
Guilty.
work best when there's urgency. Okay. They love when there's kind of a mini crisis or something to solve where the time pressure is on them. And so when there's not enough time pressure, sometimes they create situations where there is time pressure because they like the thrill. I don't know if that happens to you. I'm not saying you do that because not everybody exhibits the characteristics of some of these Achilles heels. I call it aptitudes gone wild,
Okay.
but it is good insight.
Well, and what I really like this notion is you could have a high aptitude on a thing, and that just sounds good. Like, yeah, I want a bunch of high aptitude. I want to be like Limitless, or
Right.
Jason Bourne. Like, oh, these guys are so awesome. They can do anything. So capable, speaking all these languages, snipering people far away. Like, so that sounds great, but you're really highlighting here that you may have a high level of an aptitude, and that does have a shadow side to it. And then likewise, a low level of an aptitude, things I just sort of felt ashamed might be a strong word, but in the ballpark of ashamed. Like, so on the test, there was a holes being punched into folded paper situation for spatial reasoning. And I just utterly bombed it. I could tell for the first one, which I think was supposed to be easy, I still didn't understand what I was doing. And I remember I've had these experiences, and I do get lost without GPS. And people say, oh, just come back the way you came. I was like, that's not going to be good enough. I'm going to need some more information on how to return from the bathroom to the doctor's office. Like, oops, which way did I turn during these hallway corridors? I feel like embarrassed, like I have something wrong with me. And you're saying, well, hey, there's a low aptitude on spatial reasoning.
Spatial reasoning, it's fine. I mean, that's actually the one, Pete, that people feel like throwing the computer out the window. And a lot of people, even if they do well at that particular assessment, they don't realize it in the midst of it. They all kind of come back and go, that one was so hard. And I'm like, well, you scored as a 3D visualizer, or in your case, as an abstract thinker, it wasn't that easy. But that fork in the road for people tells us a lot about, for instance, the types of careers we're going to enjoy. People who score like you do as an abstract thinker, they tend to be very good at reading emotions of people. They're very good at so many different things that are more in the idea world, the theory world, the concept world. They like to think in the world of ideas and thoughts and emotions. Whereas people who score as 3D thinkers, it's almost like a scratch that needs to be itched. And when we see that score, we ask them, what are you doing in your life to use this? And if you're a parent, so you could start to see this aptitude emerge very young in children, actually. The kid who's making the Taj Mahal out of Legos at 4, and then me, if I'm trying to do something out of Legos, you wouldn't know what it was even today. I feel like it'd be such a mess. But it's just fascinating that we can parse these aptitudes and how much they tell us about our satisfaction in our jobs and in our lives.
And Betsy, it's interesting. You're also illuminating for me, I think, one of the great mysteries of home ownership, which is, how is it that a contractor or a plumber or an electrician or a carpenter is just amazing, doing things I could not imagine to doing myself, and yet I often have a heck of a time getting them to pick up the phone, show up. I was like, maybe there's just too much demand for a limited number of tradespeople, and so we're all just kind of in this boat. But I think, Betsy, what you seem to be illuminating, this is my theory, some abstract thinking for you.
Yes, that's right.
My theory is, well, hey, they're great on an aptitude I'm not good at. And I've got an aptitude that they're not so great at. It's relatively easy for me to pick up the phone, make an appointment, show up, do the things.
Come up with the idea, all those types of things. Yes.
But actually showing up and making a great cabinets wouldn't work so well from me.
And what a waste of time. And that's also part of the point here is whether you're managing a team or managing yourself, why stay on the struggle bus? There's no point. We call the book Your Hidden Genius because everyone really does have these hidden abilities that they sometimes have recognized or maybe discounted in their lives because school didn't reward them for it, or it was, they just thought, oh, everybody can do that. And that's really not the case at all.
No, that's a huge takeaway right there. And we talked with some folks who are experts in the Strengths Finder. And that's sort of a funny thing about strengths is because they're easy for us, we just assume, oh, this is easy for everybody. But no, it's because we have these strengths, we have these aptitudes. And it's also intriguing, why stay on the struggle bus? I guess this might be hopeful or desolate, Betsy. It's fixed? Like there's just spatial reasoning is not going to be improved by me, no matter what kind of exercises I try to do?
Well, that is a great question. No, we can do anything with practice. And that is the other good news about knowing what your aptitudes are. It's often an indicator of where you may need to spend more time. Or for some people, learning a job is harder than actually doing a job. Like acquiring the skill may take them longer and be more of a struggle. But all of us can do anything with practice. But the point too is, why would you? We all have things we've got to get competent at, but why spend a lot of time trying to perfect it or apologizing for why we're not the best at it? So I'll give you an exercise I gave Marshall as well. And that was, do you have a pen handy?
I sure do.
And if your listeners do, take out a pen and just write your name.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Pete?
I have a feeling I know where this is going.
You probably do, but why not? So now switch hands.
All righty.
Okay. I know you're going to enjoy this.
Yeah.
Okay. So how does your non-dominant hand signature look?
You almost said left, but which is correct. Well, it's sloppy. It's silly. It took longer. It was harder to do.
Right. Slow. Okay. Pete, if you lost use of your dominant hand for some terrible accident, I hope that never happens, and you had to use your non-dominant hand for the rest of your life, even by the end of today, you could get better. You would get more relaxed doing it. You could practice and get better, but you're never going to be a calligrapher. Okay.
Oh, for sure.
No matter what you do. So that's the way aptitudes work. You can become competent, but spend more time on the things that come naturally and easily to you versus constantly being frustrated.
Yeah, that seems accurate. That if something is hard for you to improve on for a long time, the odds are slim you will ever become exceptionally world-class at that thing.
Right. Well, think of it as also like you don't become a musician at 35 years old all of a sudden because you work really hard at it. People have natural abilities that allow them to enjoy doing it and to get better and better at it the more they practice. But if your running start is at a different spot, it's going to take you longer and become more frustrating as you go. And that, again, doesn't mean if you're not a great musician from birth, you can't enjoy music or do well. But we all know there's certain people who just it comes easily to, and that's great. And there are things that are easy for you that aren't easy for me, and that's okay too.
All right. So with the book, Your Hidden Genius, you've got the link to the code that lets you do the test and learn these things. And then there's the ONET from the government.
Yep.
So, I mean, hey, I think it's a great move to, buy the book, do the assessment. If folks just aren't gonna, how do we take advantage of some of these insights without it?
Well, the book, if you read the book, we did design it such that if you didn't take the assessment, which I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you didn't, we tell stories. And so we explain these concepts and we talk about, we talked to over 80 different people from ages 75 to down to 18, because by the time you go through puberty, your aptitudes are fixed. So you wouldn't take an aptitude assessment any earlier than, when you're sort of in high school. But if you take the assessment, you're going to score the same at 17, 37, 87.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow.
Because again, we're not testing what you know. We're just looking at the baseline. So it's kind of fun to take them. But if you get into the book, we'll go through all the different aptitudes and tell stories and talk about how they come out with different people's careers and their avocations as well. But, you talked about other aptitudes people were discovering. We have a chapter on that, which I think is kind of cool. I'll tell a story if you are interested about smell, which they're really researching these days. certain people can smell things better than other people. This is why certain people enjoy wine or cooking in a different way. And there's a woman, many people may have read this story, maybe you did, who had a husband with all Parkinson's disease, and he died. And she went to the doctor after, and she said, I could smell it on him. And he was like, what do you mean you could smell it on him? She goes, I could smell it on him for years. And so they got interested in this, and they gave her 24 T-shirts. And they said, tell me which of these people have have Parkinson's, excuse me. And she picked out 12. And they said, well, that is remarkable because we had 11 candidates with it, and all 11 were in your pile, that other person not, but that's remarkable. And 2 months later, the 12th T-shirt wearer was diagnosed. Mm-hmm. And it's just phenomenal what they're able to now study around people being able to smell diseases. And it is actually, I believe, an aptitude. It hasn't been proven, but it's things like that that are fascinating to me.
Well, it is fascinating, and I just can't let it go. If one smells Parkinson's on somebody, I am assuming the person with Parkinson's biochemically has a smellable thing going on that non-Parkinson's sufferers don't.
That's the implication. Mm-hmm.
But we don't know what that is yet, like a film on the skin or like a...
Yes, I'm just now yakking away here because I think it's interesting.
Yeah.
But look up the story, but they do a tremendous amount of research on smell. But this is back to what I'm saying. These are science-based, research-based aptitudes that makes this quite different. You can't self-report that I'm good at this or good at that, or have this aptitude. You do have to take these game-like exercises. And as you know, it took 87 minutes to complete. So it's not a quickie, fill in the blank kind of assessment. Did you have fun doing it?
Most of it.
Okay. Well, I hope it wasn't all fun because it should frustrate. But...
Interesting. All right. So let's just summarize some of these implications. We got these aptitudes. They are not skills or knowledge or abilities. They are things that, dare I say, innate within us. We'll know that, and they'll be unchanged post-puberty for the rest of our lives. And it behooves us to seek out opportunities that line up nicely with our amounts of aptitudes in different styles, like a Rosetta Stone. It's like it maps just right. And we will struggle more if we are pursuing opportunities that are a mismatch to our aptitudes.
Yes. And further, you will be bored and frustrated if you are not using your aptitudes. And that's really the challenge, is letting things sit dormant. Because a lot of people's sort of boredom and depression and things like that is oftentimes because of an undeveloped aptitude. So remember, when you discover what your aptitudes are, the onus is on you to apply learning and practice to develop them. Motivation is sold separately. So you're understanding what your opportunity set is, where your learning rate is going to be that much faster if you apply the aptitude. So it's clues for things you're going to enjoy. It's positive news. It's not a dream killer. It's all about, here are so many opportunities I might have left on the table. Here's how I can pivot if I need to. Here are the skills I can develop that are going to feel great. It's positive news. And that's really the purpose of the book, is to give people great motivation and excitement around what their possibilities are, rather than what I always say is continue to be the walking dead. Because a lot of us are sort of give up weirdly early about our development, and this will energize you.
Well, to do a bit of a recap, you mentioned that there's a core 4 aptitudes: spatial visualization, idea generation, inductive reasoning, and sequential reasoning. Can you share what makes these the core 4, first of all?
Well, those are just hugely, again, like forks in the road for people, like big ones that if you're not using them, it's going to bother you. Or if you're overtaxing them, you're going to feel burnout and exhaustion. So knowing where you fall in those continuums is really, really helpful. The others are important. And some people have outliers. Like one that can be assessed is Certain people can identify color really well, hue discrimination. So those are specialized aptitudes. And those can be super important if you have them. But those core four are going to impact most of us in our decision tree. And then the others, are sort of like ornaments on that tree. Very helpful to know.
I like that metaphor there. And it's funny. Well, hue distinction. I'm thinking about physical therapists as well. This is my poor spatial visualization going on because I'm thinking about Katie will say, "Does it look like this shoulder is higher or lower than this?" I was like, I couldn't tell you. I am clueless. They look normal to me. And whereas physical therapists, I'm often very impressed. Like, "Oh, do you see how you're doing this?" I was like, "No, not at all do I see how I'm doing this." But they do.
They do. And there's a perfect use of their spatial visualization. They just see it.
So maybe if you could lay it on us in terms of, if you could archetypically share what might be a great role or a terrible role for someone high and low in each of the core four. So spatial visualization, we said, hey, great physical therapists, maybe great.
Oh yeah. Architect. Okay, let's get into it. Architect, landscape designer, graphic designer, anybody working with a lot of charts for sure, craftspeople, anybody in the building trades, potters, people. And let's talk about avocations. Like if you have a spatial visualization, you might enjoy things like sailing or even golf, where you're estimating space. There's a whole list of things in the book that talk about each aptitude and where you fall, but that would be one. People who score in the abstract world, like I said, they tend to like things that are more theoretical in nature, even the law. A lot of typical types of law, like constitutional law would be an example. Maybe not patent law, which would need more spatial visualization, if that helps you understand it. And then, by the way, there are people who score in the middle of each on this continuum. So we break it down into 3 groups. And you will learn something in the book about that too, wherever you score on that continuum. So that's spatial.
All right. And idea generation.
Okay. Idea generation, teachers, journalists, public speakers, comedians, actors, improv, salespeople, certain types of consulting for sure appeals to that. That's brainstormer, strong idea rate. One of the Achilles heels of being a brainstormer might be that you may have a habit of interrupting people because you just can't get all those ideas out at once. Okay. Concentrated focusers, which is the other end of this continuum, tend to be excellent at implementing ideas. They tend to be the let's pick an idea and run with it and go with it. They tend to enjoy things that take a high amount of concentration, if you will. Anesthesiologists, for example, airline pilots. Those would be examples. But there's many, many things that utilize that concentrated focuser score. Inductive reasoning. Is that the next one we might pick? So this is the one I talked about where you're very comfortable drawing a conclusion under time pressure. Basically, if you're an inductive reasoner, you need to be on a game show because you love the got to make a decision under time pressure. But think of an ER doctor where someone comes in with, 3 symptoms and they've got to really make that decision quickly. Or a Wall Street trader. Sometimes an investigator might be a diagnostic problem solver. Consultants, for sure, like you were. The other opposite end of that continuum is fact-checking, a fact-checker. That's the people who really are not comfortable making decisions under time pressure. Oftentimes they need to be pushed into the pool. They're going to look at 100 colleges before they're going to make a decision because they're looking for that one piece of data they may not have. They make great risk managers. They make wonderful HR managers because when you're hiring someone, you can't infer from 3 different pieces of information and make a decision, or you shouldn't. You're going to need to do the background check, and they're going to be the people who are going to complete all those steps. So again, value with every score. And then the last one is sequential reasoning. I don't know if you remember that one where you were putting boxes in order. Sequential reasoning is interesting. A lot of people who score as sequential reasoners tend to have messy desks because file cabinets are in their head. They don't need organizational structures as much. They tend to be able to put things in order that, like, before, if they're going to write a paper, they don't need an outline. It's all kind of organized in their head. The people on the opposite end of this, we call process supporters, and they're excellent at maintaining systems. Think about librarians, think about people who don't move their cheese. If you're going to change a system, you've got to really explain it to them, but they're going to make sure that system is followed to a T, and they're excellent at it. And we need all types on our teams. If I may, I'll tell a quick story also about that.
Yes, please.
There was a guy named Charlie Plum who was a war hero, and he took off from his aircraft carrier and was ejected from his airplane on a parachute and shot down into enemy territory and spent about 2 years, I think, in solitary or something, and got out and went and made all these speeches. And one time he was giving a talk at a restaurant, and a man came up and tapped him on the shoulders. And he was a sequential reasoner, Charlie Plum was. And he said, I was on the aircraft carrier with you. And he said, oh, well, soldier, I'm glad to meet you, Charlie Plum did. And he said, I'm the guy who packed your parachute. He was a process supporter. He didn't come up with a new way to pack the parachute. He did it the same way every time. And this is just like teams. We need all different types of people with all different aptitude scores to make us successful. So in the end, this is all about empathy, and it's about love. It's about not seeing other people as a flawed version of us. It's really valuable information. Yeah. So.
Well said. Yeah. Oof. That feels like that's a transformational key right there for many of our relationships, not to see others as flawed versions of ourselves.
Especially your spouse.
Yeah, but rather a person who has their own unique profile of different levels of aptitudes. Beautiful. Big thanks to Betsy for sharing her wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsored checkout is strawberry.me Career Coaching. Having real clarity and direction can make or break your career. If it seems like you're putting in the work but not seeing your career take off, some coaching might be just the ticket. Strawberry.me matches you with certified career coaches who help you gain clarity on what you really want next in your career, develop a results-driven strategy, and stay accountable. And they can also help you flourish beyond career issues. I had a fantastic session with my coach, Brett, about handling stress from so many responsibilities in so many areas. He was fun. He was wise. He just really got me. We had some laughs and a good time and a good rapport. And he gave me an exercise that has been so quick and so effective for me. I've been doing it every day. So if you're ready to take control and build momentum in your career, go to strawberry.me/awesome to claim your $50 credit. That's strawberry.me/awesome. Because awesome careers don't just happen, you make them happen. One sponsored checkout is EarthBreeze. I recently saw a Netflix documentary that talks about all the plastic that we throw away and we try to recycle, but it doesn't really get recycled. So I've been trying to reduce my plastic, and the most wonderful way that I've been doing so has been skipping those gigantic laundry detergent bottles for EarthBreeze detergent sheets. EarthBreeze detergent comes in super convenient cardboard, plastic-free packaging, so it's much more eco-friendly than your normal detergent. And I love how portable and quick and easy they are, and I save a pretty reasonable amount of time skipping having to carefully pour and measure liquid detergent into the machine by just tossing a quick and easy sheet in there. I personally like their scent-free version, so check out EarthBreeze for an easy way to get clean clothes without the plastic waste and get 40% off with your subscription at earthbreeze.com/awesome. That's earthbreeze.com/awesome. Well, now could you share a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
A wink is as good as a nod to a blind mule. Barney Fife said it.
Okay. And a favorite book?
I'm reading Hampton Sides, The Wide, Wide Sea right now. So my favorite book is always my last book that I'm reading. I would recommend it to anyone. It's about Captain Cook's travels. Captain Cook ended up being cannibalized on Hawaii in the 1790s, and it's a fascinating read.
All right. And a favorite tool?
Right now, it's ChatGPT.
All right.
It creates images for me, which I think is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? They quote it back to you often?
Network.
One word. Okay. Do it. And if folks want to learn more, get in touch, where would you point them?
I would say go to yourhiddengenius.com and purchase the book, and you can reach out to me that way as well.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Bring your best opportunities to your jobs and advocate for doing activities that meet your aptitudes and shed the things that don't.
All right. Betsy, thank you.
Thank you.
I love so much what Betsy had to say about not seeing other people as a flawed version of us. Boy, there's a master key for better understanding, empathy, compassion with folks. It's to appreciate they got a different set of aptitudes and to dig what they are bringing to the table and appreciating what we're bringing to the table ourselves and then just vibing, teaming, and making good things happen. Great stuff from Betsy. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've referenced, please pay us a visit at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1043. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.